Hey,
All
hey,
right.
I'm so sorry. I'm terrible with technology.
No, you actually missed it. I had this entire thing where Instagram was basically like, you're not allowed to talk to George MacKay. Close.
Okay,
And it
okay.
literally said nothing. Anyway, but glad you're here. Congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
First of all, I have to talk about it. I was talking about it a little bit before you joined because it's an interesting film because it's kind of penned as this sort of, fabulistic, different sort of love story. But when I was watching it, the thing I was struck by was just this meditation on loneliness and how he treats people with perceived mental illness, which I thought was really interesting. So for folks that haven't seen it, because I was blessed to see it, give us a little what you would call your log line for the film.
My log line. Yeah. So the film, I guess, it's about a young man named called Jacob who, and even in this first log line, it's sort of tricky because he's a wolf trapped in a man's body. Or the question is he believes that he is a wolf trapped in a man's body, and it's even that first thing it's kind of that's the quandary of the film's about. It's about being true to yourself, basically. And this Jacob is at this facility which is helping him supposedly, or trying to therapize him out of feeling that way, and to try and fix him, even though he doesn't want to be fixed. And and over the course of that time in there, he kind of meets this young woman called Wildcat, and begins this sort of friendship relationship. And over the course of that kind of, and as the sort of the therapy ramps up, kind of realizes that he's kind of, I won't give away the end, but it sort of pushes him to where he has to get to.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it. Because the other thing too, I would just have to ask you as an actor with this can't have been a very long script in certain ways. Like there's not a ton of dialogue, obviously, but there's a lot going on. And
Yeah.
so just like for you, when you first were approached by this, what was the attraction point? Because it's not one of these ones where you're like, I'm going to get my hold my soul from heaven soliloquy and stuff. Like this is very nonverbal acting.
Yeah. I think just the kind of the challenge immediately of the kind of impossible nature of Jacob's existence, of he is, as I say, he's a wolf trapped in a man's body. And it was said in the script, the times where he's in his wolf state, it was always specified that he is in his human form at the same time. So how you even get that across and how you express that and kind of figure it out so that before you even begin to express it is what drew me to it. But yeah, you're right. He's a pretty silent character. And I think he's so sort of, he's in such pain the whole time that he's kind of learned to put up these walls because he doesn't want to be tested, because he can't articulate it. He can't articulate how he is, so
yeah, he doesn't articulate it with words, but there's, like I said, there's definitely a lot going on, and it's really, I think, a remarkable performance in that, because you do have to command a lot of nonverbal dialogue in some of these moments. Sorry about that. Played by Lily Rose Depp. There's just again, there's a lot going on in all of these. I guess I would have to ask, well, I would imagine there's some research that goes into this, and I'm going to put it into the serious and the absurd. Which, the serious, did you and the director sort of talk about these real life people? Because I know there's real life people from another film that I saw about a woman who believed that she was a dog. And these are real people that, go through these experiences and have these beliefs. And then on the more absurd side, how much practicing as howling did you have to do? Because that was a pretty good howl, I do have to say.
Well, thank you. I think the first thing, on the serious side, to be honest, I'd never heard of species dysphoria before this role. And then even in playing the role, I kind of thought, I didn't really research the condition, so to speak. It was more about just researching the wolf, because I thought Jacob doesn't feel that he's ill. That's the whole point, is Jacob just is a wolf. So I'm just going to try and be the best wolf that I can, rather than, and kind of let the context tell me that there's a medical condition that I've got, because I don't think Jacob ever feels that's kind of what's his thing is. And then in terms of the absurd, it involved a lot of crawling, and I there's a park near where I live, and I used to get up really, really early and crawl in the park before anyone got there with their dogs, sort of until so I wouldn't be sort of, just seen like this weird bloke just crawling around in the grass. And then, it was kind of, and then about 6:30 in the morning, all the dog walkers and the joggers start coming, and I'd have to pretend I was stretching and, go back home. Like, there's a lot of very
get...
strange videos on my phone as well of just me.
I was gonna say, did you ever get caught out? Did anyone like catch you like mid Wilf moment, like really awkwardly?
Yeah, but almost as embarrassing as being caught out by a dog. There's sort of something about like the kind of innocence of a dog just coming up to you like while you're on all fours and being like, I've been rumbled. You know, I could never do this as good as you. But yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. That is actually awesome. Especially the idea of a confused dog rolling up you like, this human's different.
Yeah, like you pretender.
Well, it's actually good to see you. I got to cover 1917 a lot when you guys were doing that one. And I haven't actually spoken to you since that thing. But I just think, like, look, obviously the film had, like, some amazing success, both commercially and then at the awards. But that must have been such a ride. I think I talked to you about that time. Because you, too, were everywhere. And it felt like it was, like, basically you, Deakins, and Sam just were, like, all over LA for, like, 2 months. I felt so bad. I was like, way to get introduced to Hollywood, really.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. It was mad, but like also just I'd never seen that side of the work before, like that. Never kind of got, and it's sort of a funny one because it's sort of, you know, it's when you appear to be at your most busy, when you are in a sense busy because you're sort of talking about the film, but it's the longest since, like, for the last 10 years, it's the longest I've not worked, was when you look like you're the most busy, and kind of that, just even that sort of understanding to be inside that. And I guess almost that sort of, it was something because I was reading Wolf around this time of like about perception as well, about that thing of like, well, it appears that you are this certain thing, and then your experience inside of that might be a very different thing. So it's kind of, that wasn't the only reason, but I think just that I'd never thought about that when I've watched, you know, actors or people, filmmakers, anyone, musicians do interviews. You kind of think, oh, you must have literally just left the recording studio or whatever, or you sort of don't realize that that might be, you know, the furthest they've ever been away from the thing that they're talking about, which is sort of an odd thing.
Yeah, I bet you were probably homesick for acting at the end of it. Because for folks that don't know, the season, as they like to say, where you're like covering an award show, is usually about 3 months on the short side, but can be like 5 months on the long side. And some movies, if they like premiere early at like Sundance, they're literally talking about those movies for like a year and a half. And I'm just curious, did you bond with any of your fellow, outside of 1917, folks that you kept seeing? Because I feel it's almost like your graduating class of high school.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, you start to sort of see the same faces, be like, hey, you know, it's what was really nice as well, which kind of makes you feel sort of legitimate, is to have a few genuine friends who are like doing this. So I know Thomas and Mackenzie from, like, I did a film called The True History of the Kelly Gang with her, and I know Thomason, and she was there with kind of she was kind of a lot of these events as well, and she also had just been working with Christie, the writer of 1917. So Thomason was about there's lots, like Dexter Fletcher, the director, was there with Rocket Man a lot, and I got to meet Taron, and Taron's really lovely as well. But I did a job with Dexter years ago, so it was, you know, you kind of see people at the same dues, and like, you know, just get to know folk.
And that's so funny because Thomason's movie that she did with Writer of 1917 is out now.
Right now.
In Soho. Just got a bunch of nominations today, actually, for Hollywood Critics Association. So she's getting back on the train that you just got off. She'll
be back on the train. Oh, well, fair play to her.
I'm glad you mentioned the movie, The True History of the Kelly Gang, because again, I want folks to definitely check out Wolf. It's out today, and they definitely need to see it because your performance and Lily's is just incredible. But I did want to talk about The True History of the Kelly Gang because I saw that like at TIFF, I think.
Oh wow!
And
cool.
So I saw it like before it was even a thing. I watched it at like 8 a.m, so which is also a very weird time to watch. Maybe not the time to watch that film. Yeah, this is very bizarre, but such an incredible movie, and I felt great that I do think it had some success, but it was like one of those first movies that came out when we were like first shutting down. Like I remember it was like April, you know, and I wonder, it's one of those things where I think people have found it, but I just wish that movie would have been able to have the full breadth of the experience for it to be released that it was. But just real quick, talk about that one, because that was my first like real knowing of who you were. I think even before 1917, because I think that TIFF was before 1917 sort of like came out, or was it right after?
Yeah, I think it was. No, I think it was, to be honest, it was sort of all a bit muddled. I think it was just before. I think it was, it was just
just
before. But what was funny, but then the film actually got released after 90, because 1917 was in this tiny window where we finished the filming in the summer, did the TIFF for Kelly Gang, and then over that Christmas, we were then on the road in 1917 for it to come out at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's so kind of you to mention it, because that means so much to me personally, that film. Like, there was so many, it was such a kind of, I mean, firstly, working with Justin, like Justin Cazell is, his first film, Snowtown, was like the most affected I've ever been in a cinema. Like, it is intense. And so it was a proper privilege to work with him. And then the process of it, like, my dad's Australian, and I was kind of just, you know, at a point in your life when you want to, you know, you sort of going back to like, what is it to be a man? And then to sort of to play this kind of Australian bloke, and kind of this sort of version on sort of manhood, I guess, in this sort of, and the loyalty with family, but then also like kind of legacy. And it's just, there's some, and this kind of punk aspect of it. Like, it was just the craziest sort of journey doing the film. And we did all sorts, like, he got us to form a punk band. Like, we played a gig before we filmed to kind of get that sort of, that attitude sort of thing. And I think the film was really unique. So it's, and as you say, it kind of came, like, kind of was released at the point of the kind of all the various kind of, well, it's not various, but all the lockdowns around the world. So, but yeah, that's really kind of you to mention. It means, it just means so much to me, that film. It was a big sort of journey, the doing of it.
Yeah, after folks see Wolf and they're like, "Oh, this kid's great," go and like stream or rent the True History of the Kelly Gang. Is a really, really awesome and interesting movie. And I think if somebody is into Wolf and can like enjoy that suspension of disbelief, this is like the next chapter of like your weird journey.
Yeah. This is a kind of similarly strange, just sort of more aggressive, like, you know.
Yes, exactly. I definitely wanted to talk too, because you've been a busy guy, even though like we've been shut down with the pandemic. You have a lot of stuff coming out. Also, if anyone has any questions, I'll check fan questions while you answer this, but let folks know what else you have going on, because you've had a couple of things, and one is coming out in January. So the Munich one, I wanted you to talk about that a little bit.
So this, it's called Munich, The Edge of War, and it's, what's cool about it, it's a kind of like bilingual story, basically. It's these two friends who were, it's based on a Robert Harris novel called Munich, and it's a kind of, it's based in a real point in history, but it's a kind of fictional thriller threaded through the year before the Second World War, and Britain's Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain trying to stop, you know, what feels like the imminent, you know, a new world war breaking out as Hitler's trying to annex Germany, annex the Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia as it was then, and it's sort of about that thing where, you know, you feel this impending massiveness, this massive change, and it's kind of a discussion through the thriller as to what's the best way to go about it. And it feels like I was drawn to the script as at the minute, and especially like in the last 2 years, there's so much that we're reevaluating now about the world and kind of how we are, and this is sort of taking a point in history where, in hindsight, you know the massiveness of this happening, this war, and it's kind of about what the best way to deal with it is. It sort of, you've got one character who's kind of got the passion to and the sort of tenacity to do it with activism and to do it himself, and you've got the other one who sort of believes in the system that he's trying to correct, so is sort of trying to do it via the legislation. Is like, no, those things don't mean anything unless you sort of do it by the book, so to speak. And the other guy's going, well, the book's wrong. So it's, and that I feel is a discussion that, I don't know, I'm having with friends and family constantly, and the world is having. And there's, it just, I think the film sort of looks at that through a kind of really enjoyable thriller, basically. So that's that film. And then I just have finished working with a director called Babak Anvari on a film called I Came By, which is just a really, the script's great. The script's really great. And it's a kind of London thriller about these two graffiti artists who are kind of, their thing is they've got this tag that they do to, they write this particular thing that sort of, it's their kind of two fingers up to the system. And then they sort of, and they sort of pick, they pick people of influence or particularly wealthy people's homes to do it in rather than on the streets. And they basically pick the wrong spot, and the sort of story unravels from, they get embroiled in this. I can't really say too much more because it's a thriller, but it's,
I like that.
it's cool. And Babak, I love Babak's film Under the Shadow, and
Yes, I was
Babak's
just about
great.
to say, yeah, he is a twisted dude in the best way as a director. Like he just has an incredible mind for putting people on their feet as an audience, like putting them
Yeah,
on their
yeah,
heels
yeah,
and sort of just leaving them there for 90 minutes. That he's very good at that. So, I'm gonna definitely look out for both of those.
yeah.
Awesome, thank you. I was
No.
also gonna say, you have some fans here in the chat, and since listening to your new filmography, I think this one is
Mm.
great. The best of George MacKay, which I guess is one of your fan sites, awesome,
Right.
says, is there any particular film genre you've not tried yet that you would like to? And listening to all this stuff that you've done, I'm very interested in this. Like, what haven't you done yet that you really want to do?
I don't know. Like maybe like a sort of, I don't know. I guess I've done sort of some genres more than other. I guess the one is probably that I haven't done is like an all-out action one. Maybe 1917 had that sort of, and I don't know. I think
Yeah.
I'm drawn to the sort of like characters within, I guess, like dramas and things. You spend more time with the characters, and that would be a sweeping statement to say that action is sort of perhaps characters are a bit simpler.
Uh-huh.
But if there was a character and a story that sort of warranted it, I think I love the kind of physical side of stuff, and you know
Yeah.
all of the kind of the stunt work that we did in 1917 and the Kelly Gang, all that, and even Wolf to an extent. Maybe like an all-out action, like a kind of proper sort of cinema kind of rollicking action film would be a lot of fun.
I could see you get your John McClane on. Like, I could see you like one man with a gun, like trying to make it through. You're not like one man with a gun, but like in 1917, you were definitely trying to make it through.
Yeah, just do your best to get through.
Yeah, that's it. Let me see. This next question, for some reason, it's not letting me pull it up, but they're asking, I just had her. I think she was asking, what was your favorite scene to film in Wolf? Which I would be interested to know, because you have a lot of very, I would say, big moments in that movie. Like there's like some scenes that are memorable.
I'd say my favorite scene is there's a scene for when people see the film between myself and Lily's character where we're kind of getting to know each other in our animal states, and it is a scene completely in their animal form, and you know, and it's I've just never, like, without sounding, you know, like, well, you know, well done us, but I've never seen a scene like that. You know, it's kind of really, really unique, and the possibility of it was so unique, and that also is a kind of personal one, because that sort of became a huge part of Lily and I's rehearsal process together. Like, we had 3 weeks before we shot, and we sort of the spine of that rehearsal period was working on that particular scene as to kind of like versions of it where different elements of the characters were kind of pulled out more, or the intensity was up and down, and also just kind of figuring out the animal side of things over that time, and the kind of animal draw to each other. So that we kind of landed upon a kind of choreography that we improvised around in the doing of the scene. But I think because of the work that went into it, and because of the experience of doing it with Lily, and also because of how it ended up, I'd say that was probably my favorite scene.
No, that's a good one. And for folks that don't know, this is not spoiling anything, but just picture a bobcat and a wolf sort of feeling each other out in a very like walking around each other prance. But Lily Rose Depp is the bobcat and you're playing the wolf. And like that is literally it. Like they're just sussing each other out, and it's very charged. It's very charged. There's a lot going on in there.
That's a lot.
There's a lot going on in there. No, it's really great. And first of all, again, thank you for your time. Thanks for coming and chatting about the film. Is there anything else that maybe you've been watching or seeing that you want to maybe shout out? Because I know folks are going to check out your titles that you mentioned, especially the ones upcoming, and then obviously Wolf. But I always like to ask people, since you're probably at home a little bit, what are you watching at home?
God, that's a good question. I mean, the TV series I'm watching at the minute is Succession, which is great and so brilliant. But maybe in a sort of shout out in terms of their older films, like, you know, Been and Gone a wee bit. But for this, I remember asking Natalie, like, sort of when I was, because also there was the pandemic, sort of the lockdowns came in just after we started rehearsal, so the film got knocked back by months, which in some ways actually really contributed to the process of the film. But I remember saying, like, what can I watch just as like a kind of tonal reference, like just a vibe? And she put me onto this film called God, I'm now getting. Well, there was two films. One was Lawrence Anyways, which was a Xavier Dolan film, I think, which is really brilliant. And the other one is Border. You know, the Swedish film about.
Oh, Border, yes. And then I love it. You're so like British French on that one. Xavier Dolan is how we say it here in Texas.
Xavier Dolan.
Xavier Dolan.
Xavier Dolan.
Yeah.
Xavier Dolan.
So when you said it, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, oh no, I know which one you're talking about. No, he's great. He's fabulous. He's fabulous. Yeah.
So Lawrence Anyways and Border, and just because I guess if people see Wolf, and if you like Wolf and you haven't seen like Border particularly, is when someone kind of commits to an idea that is magical and it's quite strange.
It's a fable, and there's a lot of that fable aspect in Wolf as well. Yeah. Yeah.
So that, and then the original Let the Right One In as well was another reference that was kind of a real pleasure to watch again. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, those would be the sort of Wolf connections. But right now it would be Succession. It's probably, and I just watched I really enjoyed The Green Knight as well.
The Green Knight is great. David, oh God, what is his name?
Lowry.
Lowry, there you go. Yeah, no, and he actually had a few nominations for Gothams for that one, and Dev Patel is so great in that one. So I agree with all of your choices.
Well, all of those, and I'm going to watch. I think this weekend coming will be Last Night in Soho. So I can't wait for that one. So Thomas and Ananya are brilliant, and Christy, and it's such a cool team.
Yeah, and that's like a hometown movie. That's like very London.
That's a London town. That's Soho.
Yeah,
I might watch it in Soho.
Awesome. Well, George, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you. Again, big congrats on Wolf. Again, folks can check it out this weekend in theaters. And thank you again, sir.
Cool. No, thank you so much. Cheers.
All right.
Bye. See you later.
You have to click yourself out, unfortunately.
Oh, God. Okay, right. Well, you might just watch me like click myself out for ages here. So it's a really awkward goodbye. But thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.